Thank you, Steve. Beautiful, beautiful welcoming music and warming up to each other on this beautiful, I would call this maybe our first autumn morning of this season here. And welcome all to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. My name is Sally Jo Gilbert de Vargas, co-minister here. My other co-minister, Jamal Rahman, is off performing a wedding, an interfaith wedding. So we've excused him this morning because we felt that was an important job he's doing on behalf of all of us. The wedding doesn't happen to be here, but it happens to be in the couple's home. So we're very happy to have him there representing us. And we have a wonderful congregant speaking for us this morning. I will introduce him in a few minutes, but for right now, we have our opening ceremonies, which we do to kind of set the stage, and we begin with ringing our bell to say that the service is beginning. You want to do that, Steve, for me, please? And we welcome all of those of you who are online listening attentively. We know that you're there, and we appreciate your presence. And we welcome everybody who is also here in presence. I've opened with lighting of the peace lamps, the world peace lamps, which we've had for many, many years. Ever since I've been here, we've had these world peace lamps, so over 25 years. And we also have a special altar and a light lit for to acknowledge the divine feminine energy within each and every one of us, and which is part of our spiritual cloak that we have, that we wear. Our spiritual soul has both divine feminine and divine masculine energy and everything in between, and we try to acknowledge that and remember that. And so we'll have a reading to help us focus on that in just a minute. But we'll open by inviting our ancestors, who are also very much a part of our gathering every Sunday. We try to bring them into our consciousness and thank them for all the support they have given us and all the wisdom. So I've asked Rashid to offer our opening words to inviting our ancestors and also honoring our first people on whose land we stand.
Thank you, Sally Jo. We now turn our attention to our ancestors, and we call them. We invite our ancestors to join us here today. Welcome, dear ones. Allow us to express our gratitude for everything you've taught us and showed us. Your teachings showed us what can be accomplished through hard work and dedication and persistence. And I want to use this opportunity to talk about an example of one of our ancestors. This is the story about Little Bear. Tom, Little Bear Nason of Carmel Valley, dedicated his life to preserving the cultural heritage of the Indigenous Esselen people who had lost their land and hadn't received any federal recognition. His goal was to acquire the ancestral lands that had been taken from their community so long ago. Little Bear exemplified persistence and dedication. Through extended periods of little or no progress, he persisted. He would speak to anyone who would listen. This included protests on the banks of the Carmel River, speaking with state regulators, and even going to Washington, D.C. to raise awareness of the tribe. Little Bear took advantage of several relationships, and with the help of some state grants funds, began to raise public awareness of his land back movement. He stuck with this goal relentlessly, eventually leading the nonprofit Esselen tribe of Monterey County, California, to reacquire 3,200 acres of their homeland. This was a success story and one of the first times in the land back movement that the land was successfully restored to Indigenous peoples. This was accomplished without any federal recognition. As a result, land returned to the direct descendants of the people who were once forced out of their homes. Nason, Little Bear, passed away peacefully on Saturday, August 1st, earlier this month, with his wife Cara at his side. The Esalen tribe later issued a statement. He took his final breath, wrapped safely in the loving arms of his devoted wife, resting directly upon the sacred ancestral land that nourished his roots and shaped his life. Little Bear was a beacon of wisdom, strength, and dignity. He carried the ways of our people with grace and served as a pillar for our family and our community. Blessed be. We also want to recognize, this is a segue into the other part of our service where we talk about and recognize and honor Indigenous peoples. In fact, we gather here today on the ancestral homelands of the first people of Seattle. We name them First People, the Coast Salish, which includes the Duwamish. They came and they settled this land centuries before we even showed up. They worked the land, they provided stewardship. Basically, we wish to acknowledge you, the first people of Seattle. We honor your accomplishments. We honor your stewardship. Your hard work, sacrifice, and stewardship remains, though, unseated. We hold the vision that your inherent tribal sovereignty will one day be restored. We also wish to honor and celebrate their spiritual leaders who have gifted us with their examples of generosity, kindness, and maybe most importantly, forgiveness. Blessed be.
Thank you so much, Rashid, for bringing that to life for us. Very relevant and imminent sort of acknowledgement and honoring we're doing today. At this time, I'd like to invite George up to help us with an offering to the divine feminine energy.
Well, thank you, Sally Jo, and good morning to everyone. And this is always a treat for me that Sally Jo invites me up here to do this, because it's one of the most important parts of this service to me, and I think it's an opportunity for us, for each of us, to consider what the sacred feminine or divine feminine means to us. You know, we do, as Sally Jo said, we light a candle in particular honor of that. But you know, for me personally, the best way to do it would be in silence. And I invite you all to take a second now and just in silence reflect upon what divine feminine might mean to you at this very moment. And though silence, I believe, is the right answer, I'm going to violate that. And I'm a voracious reader, and I love to read a lot of things about the divine feminine. And there's quite a few books out there about the divine feminine. And I like each time I have this opportunity to try to give a different perspective. Most of the time it's a variation on a theme, but each time it may be one that you can grasp and enhance or augment the impression, feeling that you hold for the divine feminine. And especially for me, it's when I do so, it really is an important part in that it takes me to that place where the birth of the divine can occur. So today, I'm going to just read a quick quote from a book called The Ultimate Guide to the Divine Feminine. That should be appropriate enough. and the authors are Lyora Vale and Luna Ursa. And in that book, they specifically ask the question, what is the divine feminine? And they answer it actually in several different ways. And this is one of the answers, and I tried to tie it into Sally Jo's opening comments. So here's what these two women have to say. At its core, the divine feminine is a spiritual concept that there exists a feminine energy and essence within the universe that is just and sacred and fundamental as the masculine. It's the idea that divinity isn't only male and doesn't only manifest through fatherly or warrior-like figures, but also through motherly compassion and creative expressions. Importantly, the divine feminine does not refer to women specifically. Rather, it is an energy or quality that is present in all people, regardless of gender. Just as divine masculine represents traits like logic, action, order, the divine feminine represents traits like intuition, feelings, and nurturing. These two energies complement and balance each other, much like yin and yang in Chinese philosophy. When in harmony, the masculine and feminine within each of us and in the cosmos at large creates wholeness. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Beautiful, beautiful reading. So now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our guest, well, kind of, guest and regular, wonderful member and important fixture in our Interfaith Humanity Sanctuary, Reverend Steve Crawford, who is a Reverend, by the way. And he's been in our community for a long time, as long as I can remember, so at least 20, 25 years probably. And Steve has held all kinds of roles here and done all kinds of wonderful work to help us keep our building and keep our guiding council running. He's been our guiding council president and more than once, and he's done many, many things to help us keep the organization alive and well. There's one thing I want to mention about Steve, though. As a spiritual humanist, which I can really relate to because both my parents were actually spiritual humanists. If they had had the word for it, they would have used it. I don't know if they had that term. But I have always had a deep understanding because my father was a scientist, and I think Steve is he's my local substitute Harry Gilbert for when I need a scientific view on something. I used to call my dad or ask my dad when he was living out here, but my dad has passed on, so I kind of go to Steve when I need the scientific aspect of something that's puzzling me. But what I will say, the thing that comes to my mind when I think about Steve Crawford is that he lives his spirituality in a very constant, deep, and regular, everyday way. Here's why I appreciate that so much, Steve. When I belonged to another spiritual community here in Seattle, and I won't name it, it was a lovely community, and I loved going there on Sunday mornings. I came all the way from Port Orchard on the ferry with my children to Seattle every Sunday morning to be at a service there, and I really enjoyed it. And I felt it was a wonderful spiritual time for me. But when I went home, I always thought that I had to wait a whole week to get that kind of nourishment again. And at some points I would think, what about the rest of the week? What about the rest of my life? What about the rest of my days? Where is my spiritual nourishment? How can I access that? And I never really got an answer, and it's one of the reasons I kept searching. But when I met Steve, I found that Steve automatically assumes that spirituality is something that must be lived and practiced every day and every moment, and he shows us how to do that. So now I've set you up, right? You're going to hear. Yeah, but it's true, ladies and gentlemen. It really is true. When I think about Steve, that's what I think about. So Steve, it's all yours. Go for it. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you, Sally Jo. That was very beautiful to hear. Whenever I've spoken several times throughout the years here and conducting a service, and whenever I do, I like to start out by saying, you know, it's a real honor to have people come in front of you and pay attention to what you're going to say. And I don't take that lightly. I take that very seriously. So I prepare, and usually I do it when something occurs to me throughout the year. Quite often I do a service a year. And something did happen a few months ago that kind of surprised me, and it kind of tweaked the way I see and move and act in the world. And so I'm going to share that with you today. Now, as far as spiritual humanism goes, if you Google it, there's smatterings of spiritual humanism, but it has not congealed into like a particular philosophy, and people do it in a variety of ways. But I coined that word for my own practice because I am a firm believer that human beings, regardless of whether you believe in God or you don't believe in God or you don't know if God exists, are perfectly capable of identifying and incorporating spiritual ideas into their own life, into everyday life, into every moment. And so that's what I thought it would work for me as a term. Now, the very first service I did here, a long time ago, it was, why don't we have world peace? And there were a lot of reasons why we don't have world peace. Well, fast forward today, we still don't have worldwide peace. Now, one of the specific things identified is that it's not for lack of messaging. We have had people write and religious faiths come up with their holy books and identify spiritual ideas. So that's been around for back to the dawn of history. So it's not that we haven't heard about them or have had our neighbors or our family tell us about them. It's just that we can't seem to keep them operating day to day, minute to minute, second to second. That's the key. Now that's pretty tricky to do. But if you work on it, and people work on it in a variety of ways, you can get better. And I would say most of the major faiths, especially the ones we do on universal service, talk about sort of the highest ideal that a human can aspire to is to live in the field of love. You receive love from the people around you, you give love, you act in love, and you grow in what love means the longer you practice that. And so I've been working on that for a long time, but I still drop out of it sometimes, you know, and usually that's because there's something that's happened and I have an unconscious belief about the way the world should be. But then somebody does something that's not the way I think it should be. So then I get irritated, or I'm annoyed, or I might get angry. Could be any number of things like that. And then I'm dropped out of this living in the field of love. And it's a lot nicer to be moving around and breathing and living in love than it is to be annoyed and irritated and angry. And plus, I'm not as effective in terms of, you know, being a representative of spreading love in the world, which our world needs. I mean, we all need to do that. We're only going to get worldwide peace if everybody is participating and everybody is bringing their own personality and their own version of love into the world. And it's not for anybody to tell you, you have to do this version or that version. That's not the issue. It's just to be love and to be aware of it and to practice it. So this was maybe 7 months. I was thinking about respect. And I hadn't really thought about it in this way, but I came to the conclusion that I need to respect everything. Now, that's a little wonky because there's a lot of things that happen in the world I don't agree with. But I realized if I don't respect it, it puts me in a duality where I'm not with it. And so then I can't be in this united field of love. So that was the impetus that made me start to think, could I, and these ideals that I had in my mind, the ideals of everything is connected to everything else, we're all part of a whole, treat everyone as your family, be kind, all these different things that you read about in the books. They were there, but they weren't really structured in a way that would, I thought, help me just wake up, and that would be my set point, that I could have these different spiritual ideas build up in a pyramid where the top would be living in the field of love. And then, so then I thought, well, what's going to be my very foundation that starts working up? And each level, there's not that many of them. There's a total of 4. So don't worry, there's not that many. But each one adds to the next, and then those two add to the third. And then once you get to the third, it's just a natural progression. You're going to get to the fourth, which is living in the field of love. So the first one is that everything is connected. It's everything as a whole. You could think of it as God created everything that exists, and we're just part of that. Or it could be the universe gave birth to us. But everything, and then we know from science that, everything here in this room right now is made of these sort of eternal energy waves, particles, and they just come together in this miraculous ability to be different things. And, at some point when we were born, a bunch of them got together and became us. And then we get to live for a while, right? It's only for a while, by the way. We're on loan. So it exists. It's easy to believe, especially if you can see it. And I don't think it's that hard to see. I mean, we live in a world and a universe that is expansive, and it's all connected. I mean, I can come over here to Steve, and there it is. I'm connected with Steve. And if we could get in a spaceship, we could go out of our solar system, like our alien visitors do, that come in a time warp and come here. So I take that as the base level. And then from there, where the respect comes in. Then I want to and must respect everything, because it's all a whole. If you don't respect part of what exists, then you're not respecting the whole, and then you've got a big problem, because you don't want to have that division. It doesn't mean that you must agree with everything. We can make decisions about what we prefer to people be loving rather than people being crass or braggadocio and not being kind, whatever it is. We can not like that, but we can still respect it, that it's here, and it's something that we must deal with. So how are we going to deal with it? That's the question, and that's what happens beyond this. So the first two is that we're all part of the creation, and everything is connected, and that's a beautiful thing, because that gives us a greater awareness of just a small part of the world to, we're open to everything. And then we can be respectful. And I want to put this into my way that I perceive the world. It's there, it's my set point. So no matter what I see, I realize this is part of the whole of which I'm connected to. And then I respect it. Even though I may or may not agree with what's going on, I still respect that it is here and it is real. And it is deserving of our attention. All right, so whatever that is. So this service is going to be a little interactive. So what I want us to do, now you don't have to, but it would be good, I think, if you did, is that we're going to take these two things that I presented, and I want us to get in pretty small groups because we're only going to have a certain amount of time for the service. And I want to have you discuss what you think about these things. You know, do you think, how do you feel about it? Do you agree? Do you not agree? You know, how real is it to you? And what do you think about respecting everything that is? So we'll move our chairs into little small groups, definitely not more than 3. And then if we're short, well, no, if there's a group of 2, we'll just let that be. I don't want to participate in the group because I'm setting this up. I don't want to put my ideas into it. So if you're willing, just pick groups and just sort yourselves out and talk a little bit about these things. And I'll ring the bell once we need to come back. One more minute. One more minute. All right, let's come back. Let's come back to the group mode. Okay, well, there was no hesitancy about conversation, so that's good. We're going to have time later after I finish the presentation, but just in case somebody has like some burning question you want to ask me now and you don't want to forget it, I'll take a question. If we don't, then I'll just keep on going. Tony. No, it is not. No. The acceptance part of respect is that it is part of what's happening in the universe. And we are connected with it. You can't just swish it away. It's here. We can only get better if we admit that it's happening, respect that it's happening, and then do what we need to do to improve the situation. And then how we're going to do the improvement is the next two levels that come after this. But, so it's a perceptual point that if you're feeling connection and you know it's there and you are respectful, you're in the best place to actually do something about it that you want to do. Because you're grounded. You're not coming out of anger or revulsion, and so you can't give anyone respect or the. So does that answer the question? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. So these two things together then lead to action, because we are action. You know, we've been given the gift of being able to generate energy and make changes and interact. You know, so almost all life does that, but we're the ones that are kind of out of control sometimes with the amount of change we can bring about. So putting respect and that we're all part of the same existence leads me to kindness. We want to act with kindness, and we want to interact in a way that leads to possibilities of change rather than shutting down the door or telling somebody they're worthless or whatever it is. So you want to move towards positivity and do it from a grounded place where you can be most effective. If we're clouded with anger or resentment or jealousy or whatever it is, we're not able to be kind. And so I was on a live with my sister. My sister she's a psychic, and she does tarot, and she has a YouTube channel. And we were talking about, a lot of the readings are about, because people want to know, why are all these bad things happening in the world? You know, they're all depressed, and I understand that. But we don't want to be depressed, because if we're depressed, then we can't be present, then we can't do what we need to do. So we acknowledge it, we respect it's happening, but we want to be kind, because that will give us the best chance to doing something that will be constructive, that will work. So, and somebody wrote in the comments, well, we're in this condition because we're too kind, you know, we don't do anything about it. That's not kindness. Kindness is just taking an action or interacting with somebody in a way that recognizes their existence and that they're part of the family, and we respect that it's here, but we want to bring change because this isn't working. It's not for the benefit of the planet. It's not for the benefit of all the other the species that are on the planet, or just humanity in general, you know. So, acting with kindness. And that can be in a lot of different ways. I'll just give you one example. Elizabeth and Richard, we went up to Bellingham to go to Wild Church, and we stopped at a convenience gas station outlet because we wanted to use the bathroom, you know, as part of being a human being. So I went in there, and the guy that was behind the counter, I was waiting, you know, we were waiting, and the guy that was behind the counter was a little disheveled, and, you know, and this is a job where you might think, well, this is kind of a, you know, it's not that much of a great job or anything. But I was waiting, and I said, hey, you know, how are you doing today? And so he said, well, you know, I'm doing okay. I said, have the customers been friendly? You know, what's it like? And I could just see his energy pick up, you know, because I'm there respecting him. I'm seeing him as a human being. I'm not seeing him as the job. He's just part of the reality, and that's where the reality is right here. But I want to interact with it in a kind way so that he feels respected and so he knows that someone is noticing him. And then when I left, I said, I'm really glad you were here for me today because I needed to use the bathroom. I didn't say that, but I mean, that's what I'm thinking, you know. And then so lately, because I've been doing this respect thing, I've started talking to more people that they're laying on the sidewalk, and you know they're probably on fentanyl because that's the wave that's going through Seattle. So I've had interactions with those people, and sometimes they go well, and sometimes it doesn't. But I want to try because I just don't want to walk by them and just ignore that something's happening here that's I don't think is very good when people are hooked on fentanyl. So those are just small examples. Does it change the world in a big way? No, but if everybody was doing it all over the place, it would make a big change in the world. So, you know, the weight of the world doesn't rest on anyone's shoulders alone. That's an impossible situation. But we all contribute, and we've got to get everybody on the bus of everything is connected. We are all respected. We want to be respectful, and we want to be respected, and we want to be kind. That's the bus we're on so far. So then that takes us to, and these things add up. You know, you can't be kind if you don't respect somebody. You know, that's, and you're not going to be respectful if you're not thinking that we're all connected. You know, everything is connected, so there's every reason to respect everybody. And then because everyone's connected and because we respect, then there's every reason to be kind. It just follows. Boom, boom, boom. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's just in the head. And that's what you're seeing in the world. Like walking around, I see something that's quote unquote bad. I don't think it's bad. I just think this is happening and it's like a problem. And you know, is there something I can do here? Or maybe I can, maybe I can't. But if I can, then I try to do it, whatever it is. It may go well, it may not go well. That's not the point. The point is to make the effort to bring kindness and respect to the person or the animal or whatever the situation is, and do what we can. So you put those three things together, then you come to being in the field of love, because if you're always seeing things as being connected, and you're always being respectful, and you're always being kind, it's very easy to be loving. It's just a natural outflow of it. Now, love is a big concept. I wouldn't try to claim that I know everything about love or how to do it, but everybody has a relationship with love, so everyone can know within their own life how to express it. It's not for me to tell you how to do it. That's why everybody's an individual. That's the thing. Everything's connected, but everyone is an individual. All life forms are a brand new thing. There's nothing else like it. It's miracle after miracle after miracle, and here we are in it. And if we can just change the way we perceive and receive and act, then we can bring about change in the most effective way for each person, because every person has a job to do. You were born to do something. So, I mean, that's up for you to decide what it's going to be, but you're not here for nothing, I don't think. It doesn't make sense that we're here for nothing. So then we get to the field of love, and what's nice about just being in that space is that, if something bothers you and you drop out, it's like clanging bells go off in your head. I'm not in the field of love. What is going on? So then I need to look at whatever that is, something within myself. And, most of that stuff I've dealt with. It doesn't happen that often, but it's still, every once in a while, it'll happen. I'm not perfect. I never will be perfect, as far as I can tell. But we can get better. I mean, if everyone was getting better at this, living in the field of love, it would ripple all over the world. I mean, there's no stopping it. People want to be respected. Little toddlers that are pre-verbal, they've done studies on them where if they do a puppet show and one puppet is not respecting the other puppet, and then they give the puppets out to play. Nobody wants to play with the puppet that's not being respectful or is being mean. They all want to play with the nice puppets. That's like wired into our DNA. And it's still here when we're adults. And people can tell if you try to trick somebody, like you pretend like you respect them when you don't. That doesn't work. They know on a very deep level. They can tell whether they're being respected or not. So that's the progression. So let's talk about them all together in groups again for another 10 minutes, and then we'll have comments and questionnaires. So if you want to do a group, same group, or it could be different, it's up to you. Okay, one more minute. One more minute. Okay, so this is, we have a public, because this is all being live streamed, we have a public question and answer, or it doesn't have to be a question. I mean, if you just have something you want to share with the group at this point that you're willing to share publicly, this would be the time to do it. So the floor is open, and we should pass around the microphone to people. Okay, here we go. So the floor is open.
Our group was talking about the sequence you were talking about with realizing interconnectedness and then respect and then kindness and then love, and seeing it not as like a checklist, maybe not even necessarily in an order, but as a kind of a circle. That once you get those things in place, then the love is kind of a more all-encompassing thing. But the question that we had was, that we were hoping that you would respond to, because you have this experience, is that you were talking about, is what do you do when you drop out of all that to reset and get back into it?
Well, this is, it's a practice. And so it's going to be different for everybody. I can just tell you what works for me. So when I'm awake, I have a feeling, a sense of my connection with the world, and everyone I meet, my animals, the plants, whatever it is, I just know that I'm a part of this. I'm not separate from it. So that's the set point. And then whenever I drop out, it's because somehow something is not part of the set point anymore. I mean, I'm not feeling that. So, but I've generated that within myself, because when we're born, we learn about the world, many things we take into our mind subconsciously. that we don't even know are there. And it takes active work to find them. So there's usually something that I have that I can find pretty quickly that, oh, I think this person shouldn't be acting this way. They should be acting a different way. So then, and I'm annoyed with that, or whatever it is. So then I could say, oh, well, I've made a mistake. You know, this person gets to be whoever they are, and that's what it is. So I just go back into respecting him, being kind, and being loving with him as best I can. So that's, you fall out, you find it, and you realize that's not a rule of the universe, it's just something that was in my head. You just erase it and move on. And sometimes you have to erase it more than once. They're stubborn sometimes. Yeah.
I'm Sylvia Rose. I want to say thank you for including me, even though I got here so late.
You're part of the whole.
So I think that sometimes, I'll just speak for myself, because I've found that sometimes I'm drawn to be with a certain group of people, and then I'm drawn to go somewhere else or be with other people. And it's not a rejection of those people, it's just sometimes just how, whatever it is that I need to learn or do on my path. You know, I have a regular church I go to, but I still go to other places. I always jokingly say, when I go to other churches, I'm cheating on my church, but it's not. It's just a joke. It's not, you know, because I do go back there. But it's good to go and meet other people and have other perspectives. And it's very interesting that you have this grate here, I noticed, because it looks like the flower of life pattern.
Oh.
So maybe nobody. Anyways, thank you for including me. And let me give you the mic back. Who's doing it here? Sylvia Rose.
Sylvia, nice to meet you. Sylvia Rose.
You know, I wasn't going to say anything, but just listening to Steve talk, and you know, we can talk about a lot of these things hypothetically. We can talk about them academically, but putting things into practice sometimes is more difficult. And I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of do a little public service announcement here, and that is, I deal with the homeless community here in Ballard. And almost to a person that I meet has a difficulty with the homeless community. They may not admit it, they may not say it out loud, but in their homes, they have a difficulty with it. But very little is being done about it. So I'm just gonna bring this up real fast, and that is, each Monday here, at 3:30 in the afternoon, up at St. Paul's on 65th and 12th. We have a meeting of the Ballard Community Task Force on Homelessness and Hunger that is trying to do something about the homeless community. So it's not a matter of just trying to change your feelings about it. It's also a matter of trying to do something about it. And so I invite you all to come to it. I'm the co-chair of that meeting. We meet from 3:30 to 5, and it's also on Zoom if you can't get down there. But I don't mean to be talking from my soapbox, but you know, I couldn't help but want to bring that up in light of what you're talking about today. Because here's an opportunity to really test, and here's an opportunity to develop that compassion. The definition of compassion is one definition of compassion is to feel somebody else's pain, but also to want to do something about it. So I invite everybody to come, and if you want to talk about it afterwards, we can talk about it then.
Thank you for that. I'll have to join you in that sometime, George. A little something that came up in our little group was about fear. Sandra was talking about a bee or a hornet actually that was kind of buzzing around her, and to not be in a state of fear, so you could gently brush it away without it. So it made me think about fear and how hard it is to have respect when we're in a state of fear. And that's kind of a checkpoint. It's just like recognize that whenever I'm in that place that I can't respect this person, what is it that I am in fear of? What am I really scared of? And then it was also brought up that whenever we're in that state of fear, that it's very constrictive, and then we're cut off from that oneness, from that feeling of connectedness, which cut us off at the base of what Steve was talking about. Remember that it's all connected. It's just like, if I'm in a state of fear, I've cut off my connectedness. So it's not an answer to anything, but kind of a checkpoint, a way to check in with yourself.
Gerald Jampolsky, it was probably in the 70s or 80s. He wrote a book called Love is Letting Go of Fear, and just the idea of that is cool.
I thought I would share something that came up in our group, and that's partly an answer to your question about like if we drop out of respect or have something happen to us where we experience someone dropping out and like expressing anger towards us, and it pulls us down, our energies down, or our vibration. Someone had an experience of being able to offer kindness to a homeless person after that, and how that totally shifted their energy and brought it back up and sort of recalibrated. It was helped them recalibrate, and that gave me a lot of food for thought in terms of when I'm pulled down. Is there something I can do for someone or something to make a difference in some way to the greater world? And a practice that I've been trying to do also is when I feel pulled out of alignment is to step back and come back to a place of gratitude and like name 5 things that I'm grateful for. And this definitely was not my own idea. I've heard it around a lot, and it's taken me a while to remember to do that. But I do find if I can step back and find either five things that I'm grateful for, and quite often that's involves 5 things that I'm in loving relationship with, that can help raise my energy or my vibration also. So I just thought a couple things that gave me food for thought.
Well, we're running a little bit long, so yeah. So we'll. I just want to say this one little story where I go to this Cafe Clatch coffee shop, and I got to know the people that work there. And I was in there last week, and there's a young guy that works there, is very personable, and he's gay. He does drag shows when he's not doing the barista work. And there was a pride flag in there. And so I've talked to him quite a bit over the weeks that I've known him. And something happened. I wasn't aware of it because I was reading. And he said, "Steve, I need to come talk to you." I said, "Okay." So he came over. He said, "This guy came in, and he said, you can't fly the Ukrainian flag and then the pride flag, too. I mean, that's got to go." And he said, I got really angry, and I didn't really even know what to say to him. And I said, "Well, what happened?" Because there was no ruckus. He said, "Well, he walked out, but it just really bugged me." I said, and he said, I want to know what you think about this. I said, "Well, here's the deal. Every human being you interact with since they were born, has gone through a whole lineage of experiences. And all these experiences have led them to be where they are right now. There are reasons why he thinks that. You don't know what they are. And you need to know that you should be fine with yourself. And just because they have an opinion there's something wrong with you, it's because they're lost in separation in some way. It doesn't reflect on you. So you don't, you can work at not getting angry, and then you may be able to talk to him in some way that would bring the interaction around to possibly letting him grow. And so that's always a possibility. Now, but we're going to have more comments after, but we're going to bring the public broadcasting down. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and the official public service is over. Yeah, we can do that.
This is also the time in our service where we just do a little bit of wrap-up. We're going to share our wealth with the community, and hopefully the people online are already doing that. But those of us who are here, we pass the plate. We know that some of you give online, some of you